that the monk Abba Garima copied the Gospels in one day after founding the Garima Monastery in northern Ethiopia, near Adwa.
What if I told you that the story of Jesus' resurrection, the one the whole world believes in, is not complete? Since childhood, we've been told that the story ends at the empty tomb. The stone was rolled away. The tomb was found empty, and that's it. The end. Silence. And it feels like the story just stops there. But the truth is that ending was never really final. And maybe it never was. Think about it. If the story didn't end there, then what happened next? And why were we never told that part? For nearly 2,000 years, the world has been told only one version. But thousands of kilometers away from Rome in the West, in the ancient stone monasteries of Ethiopia, monks have been preserving a completely different truth. A Bible that doesn't have 66 books, but 81, pages that the West never read, words that were never openly shared. And in those forgotten pages, it's not just written what happened after the resurrection, but what changed. Not just a story of death and heaven, but the true nature of God, the purpose of the soul, and a direct connection to a truth that may have always been hidden from us. Now the question becomes even bigger. If all this has existed for so long, why was it hidden? And if it's coming out now, are we really ready to hear it? Before moving ahead in the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can watch videos like this first. Most people believe that the Bible is a final book. The way we have it today is how it has always been. But that's where the biggest twist lies. Because the Bible most of the world reads contains only 66 books. But the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, even today, follows a Bible with 81 books. Now think about it. This isn't a small difference. That's 15 more books than the Protestant Bible, and even 8 more than the Catholic one. The question is simple. Where did these extra books come from? And if they really existed, how did they disappear from the rest of the world? The most interesting part is that Ethiopia never accepted that the Bible should be shortened. For them, these 81 books are the complete truth, while the rest of the world might be reading just a short version, like being given only the easy and smaller part of a much bigger story. Some people say the Bible was simplified over time so that common people could understand it easily. But others believe this wasn't simplification. It was selection, meaning certain things were intentionally removed. If the version we have isn't complete, then where is the real story hidden? And have we been trusting only half the truth all this time? When we talk about these 81 books in Ethiopia, the real story begins here. Because these aren't just extra chapters, but entire books that the Western world never accepted, like the Book of Enoch, Jubilees, and Maccabees. Today, these names may sound strange to most people, but there was a time when early Christians valued them just as much as other scriptures. So what happened over time? Western scholars slowly pushed these books aside, calling them myths or stories. It was said that they weren't true religious texts, but Ethiopia never let them go. The monks there preserved these manuscripts generation after generation, like they were protecting a very valuable secret. Now things get even more interesting. When scientists tested the Ethiopian Garima Gospels, radiocarbon dating showed that these manuscripts are from between 330 and 650 AD. That makes them some of the oldest illustrated Christian manuscripts in the world. At a time when Europe was facing chaos and wars, these texts were being safely preserved in Ethiopia. If these books are so old and authentic, then why were they removed from history? Were they just stories? Or did they contain something that wasn't meant to be revealed to the world? Now let's talk about the book that created the most controversy, the Book of Enoch. This is the text that the West almost completely rejected, but Ethiopia still preserves. And the reason is clear. Because what's written in it is very different from typical religious stories. According to the Book of Enoch, in ancient times, around 200 angels, called the Watchers, descended to earth. These were not ordinary angels. Even their leaders are named: Samyaza, Azazel, Barakel. And from here, the story becomes even stranger. It is said that these angels formed relationships with human women, and from them, a new race was born, the Nephilim. These were giant-like beings, extremely powerful, and slowly they began to influence the world. But the real point doesn't stop there. These angels taught humans knowledge that was never meant for them, things like making weapons, the art of war, astrology, mystical powers, and methods through which humans could control nature and others. So this isn't just a story about sin, it's a story about forbidden knowledge, knowledge that humans were never supposed to have. This is believed to be the reason why the Roman Church considered this book dangerous, because if people start believing that humans were once given advanced knowledge, then the entire religious structure starts to come into question. What happened after the resurrection? The hidden truth of 40 days. The story we've always heard makes it seem like everything ended very quickly after Jesus' resurrection. He appeared to a few people, and then ascended to heaven. But Ethiopian texts, especially the Book of the Covenant or Mashaf Kedis, show a completely different picture. According to them, after the resurrection, Jesus stayed with his disciples for a full 40 days. And the most important part, during this time he didn't give ordinary teachings. He gave instructions, as if he wasn't just a teacher, but someone speaking with deep knowledge of a much larger system. It is said that during these 40 days, Jesus spoke about a hidden structure of reality, something we normally cannot see. He explained that this world is not just what we see with our eyes. Behind it are layers, frequencies, invisible forces, and powers that even influence the way we think and understand things. He also talked about a spiritual war. But this wasn't a war of swords or armies. It was a war of awareness, a struggle where a person has to strengthen their own understanding, their thoughts, and their inner consciousness. In other words, the real battle is not outside, it's happening inside. Now think about it. If this is true, then it means Jesus' real message wasn't limited to rituals or rules. And he wanted to give humans an understanding so they could recognize this hidden system. And the story of these 40 days doesn't end here. The real turning point comes when Jesus gives a warning to his disciples, a warning that still feels unsettling today. According to him, the world is not exactly as it appears. It is a kind of deceptive system where everything looks real, but deep inside, things can be controlled. He clearly says, "Do not build temples of stone, build the temple of the heart." At first this sounds simple, but it carries a deep meaning. It doesn't mean temples or churches are wrong. It means the real connection is not in external buildings, but inside a person. If the heart is not pure, no external worship will truly work. But what he says next is the most shocking. He warns his disciples about organized religion. And he says that in the future, some people will use his name, wear long robes, build grand temples, and gather gold, money, and power from people. In other words, religion, which was meant to free people, would slowly become a tool of control. He even mentions a kind of future Rome, a power that would use his name to build a massive system, where the cross, once a symbol of peace and sacrifice, could be turned into a symbol of power and fear. When we look at history, crusades, massive churches, religious wars, it starts to feel strangely real. The most serious part is this: Jesus tells his disciples that a true person will be someone who, even in the middle of all this, can recognize the truth within themselves. They won't be a blind follower of any system. If this warning was truly given, then are we living in that same world today, the one that was warned about 2,000 years ago? Now comes the most dangerous and most personal part, because this is not about the outside world, but about what's inside us. According to these texts, every human has two kinds of winds within them. One is the wind of life, and the other is the wind of error. It sounds simple, but the meaning is very deep. The wind of life is what helps us stay calm, aware, and make the right decisions. But the wind of error is described almost like a parasite. It's not just a bad thought, but something that slowly enters a person and begins to change them from within. How does it enter inside us? The texts clearly say, through the eyes, when we look at things we shouldn't, through greed, and when we start wanting more than we truly need, and through lies, when we begin to move away from the truth. Slowly, this error wind makes a person's heart hard, and this is where the most frightening line comes in. Such a person becomes a walking tomb. Think about it. They are alive, breathing, working, talking to people, but from the inside, they are empty. It's as if their soul has gone to sleep. If you look at today's world, how many people seem like this? Active on the outside, but dead inside? But the good part is, a cure is also mentioned. And it's not about rituals or ceremonies. It is gnosis, true knowledge, understanding yourself, recognizing your thoughts, and learning to control them. Just like a guard protects a gate, a person has to guard their own mind. The meaning is clear. The real battle is not outside, it's inside. And the person who understands their own thoughts is the one who can protect themselves from this invisible parasite. In these ancient Ethiopian texts, there is also a mention of gates of the winds. It says that the winds of the world move through specific paths as if they have fixed directions. Earlier, people thought this was just poetry or imagination. But what does modern science say today? We now know about global air currents, massive flows of air that control weather, storms, and climate across the Earth. So what was written thousands of years ago is now being confirmed by science. Now let's talk about water. These texts mention a massive reservoir of water beneath the earth, hidden from our sight. Earlier, this too was seen as just a story. But recently, scientists discovered water trapped inside a mineral called ringwoodite. This mineral is found deep in the Earth's mantle, and it may hold enough water to equal the volume of our oceans. Now think about it. How did a book written 2,000 years ago know all this? No satellites, no modern technology, yet such detailed knowledge. If these texts were right about things like air and water, then could other parts also be true? Is this just belief, or a glimpse of some lost knowledge? Now we come to the warning, which might be the most disturbing part of this entire story. In these texts, one line appears again and again. Darkness will wear my face. It may sound simple, but its meaning is very deep. It means that evil will never come in its true form. It won't look scary or monstrous. Instead, it will look like truth. It will come in the name of religion, in the name of goodness, and people won't even recognize it. That's why it is often connected to the idea of the Antichrist, a force that appears completely right on the outside, but is completely opposite on the inside. If we look at today's world, this idea feels strangely relevant. Many times, things that seem right turn out to be wrong later. And when it comes to religion, we also see fake leaders, power, money, and control coming into play. The line between truth and falsehood is slowly becoming blurred. But these texts don't just give a warning. They also offer a way. They say that a person must go inward through meditation, by focusing on their breath, by calming the mind. These ideas may remind you of ancient traditions from India and Tibet, where meditation, pranayama, and inner awareness are deeply emphasized. Some theories even suggest that during his missing years, Jesus may have traveled to these regions and learned such practices. Whether that's true or not, the connection is clearly visible. If recognizing truth is this difficult, then how do we decide whether what we believe is real, or just a well-presented illusion? Ark of the Covenant, real power or ancient technology? Now we come to the mystery without which Ethiopia's story feels incomplete, the Ark of the Covenant. In movies, you may have seen it as something lost somewhere in Egypt, but Ethiopians strongly reject that idea. They claim that the real Ark is still mahfuz, preserved today in the city of Aksum, inside the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. Its story begins with the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. It is said that when their son, Menelik I, grew up, he went to Jerusalem to meet his father. Solomon offered to make him king there, but Menelik refused. And when he returned, he carried a secret that changed history. It is believed that he secretly brought the real Ark to Ethiopia, leaving behind a replica in its place. Now the question is, what was actually inside this Ark? In the Bible, it's not described as just a sacred box, but as a kind of power. It is said that it could burn enemies, bring down fire, and anyone who came too close would die. It almost sounds like some kind of modern high-tech weapon. And this is where things get even stranger. Even today, in that church, there is a guardian, a person who spends his entire life there and never leaves. People say that slowly his eyesight fades, his skin turns pale, and he dies at a relatively young age. These symptoms sound a lot like radiation exposure. So is this just a religious symbol? Or some kind of ancient high-energy technology? If it really exists in Aksum, then it's not just history. It could be a hidden power that is still being kept secret even today. Now let's move to a place in Ethiopia that doesn't just make people look. It leaves them stunned. Lalibela. At first glance, these may look like old churches, but the moment you observe closely, you realize something very different is going on here. There are 11 churches here, but they weren't built. They were carved directly out of solid rock. That means where a full church stands today, there was once a massive block of stone, and it was slowly carved from the inside to create the entire structure. This is called rock-cut architecture, but Lalibela goes far beyond anything ordinary. The most shocking part is that all of this was completed in just about 24 years. Modern engineers say that to build something this massive and complex using hand tools would take at least 40,000 people over more than 100 years. And not just the construction. If so much stone was removed, there should be debris somewhere. But that's the biggest mystery. Where did millions of tons of stone go? There's no debris, no clear trace. Local people say that humans worked during the day, but at night, angels came and continued the work. They say angels worked twice as fast and used tools of light that could cut stone like butter. It sounds like a story, but some people connect this idea to laser tools or directed energy technology. The most famous church in Lalibela, St. George, is carved in a perfect cross shape and sunk into the ground. You look at it from above, as if the earth itself was cut into a precise design. Its walls, windows, and doors are crafted with such accuracy that even modern machines would struggle to match it. But the mystery doesn't end there. Beneath these churches lies a network of dark tunnels. Religious rituals were performed here where people had to pass through complete darkness, without light, without guidance. It is said to symbolize passing through darkness to reach light. Recently, when this site was scanned using 3D laser technology, hidden chambers were discovered beneath the ground, empty spaces that had remained sealed for centuries. Priests believed that ancient treasures or even the tools used to create these structures might still be hidden there. So the question remains, was this really built by humans? Or was some kind of advanced technology used here? Something that we have lost today? Because Lalibela is not just a place, it's a question that still has no clear answer. The Solomonic dynasty of Ethiopia is not a small story. It is claimed that this lineage lasted for nearly 3,000 years, from around 900 BC to 1974. That means for thousands of years, the same royal line stayed in power. The last emperor of this dynasty, Haile Selassie, was called the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah. This wasn't just a title. It was a direct claim that he came from the same lineage as King David and Solomon. Now things get even more interesting. If this dynasty is truly connected to Solomon, and if Mary also came from the same Davidic line, then what does that mean? Could Ethiopia's royal lineage be directly connected to the sacred story we've only read in books? Scientific research adds another twist here. Some genetic studies suggest that the people of Ethiopia have connections to the Levant region, modern-day Israel and Syria, from around 3,000 years ago. That means this isn't just a story. There may have been real migration. In Ethiopian tradition, you see a unique blend of Jewish and Christian beliefs. Even today, some people observe the Sabbath on Saturday, follow dietary laws, and maintain very ancient traditions. It feels like the religion survived in a form closer to its original state, unchanged, unedited. And now comes the biggest question. Some theories even suggest that Jesus did not die on the cross. If he survived, then where would be the safest place for him to go? A place where his own bloodline ruled, where outside powers had little control, and where his identity could be hidden. Many people believe that place could have been Ethiopia. Even today, in some remote mountain regions, stories are told about a righteous teacher, someone who came from the north, healed people, and then disappeared. People don't call him Jesus, but the story feels very similar. Now here comes the biggest twist. If all of this has existed for so long, then why is it suddenly coming out now? Why are these books, these stories, and these theories spreading so fast in the age of the internet and AI? Is it just a coincidence? Or has the time come when this truth can no longer be hidden? Look at today's world. People are talking without meeting, seeing things without being physically present. A world where truth and falsehood are blending together. In such a time, if these ancient texts are really pointing toward a deeper truth, then the question becomes even bigger. Was history ever edited? Were we never told the full story? And if all of this is true, then one thing becomes clear. If this is true, then the whole world has been believing in the wrong story.